afternoon. Good afternoon. Waiting on some folks to join, and then I'm going to get started. Thanks for watching my Facebook Live. If you're viewing, got about 3 people on so far. I got 4 guys. Thanks for watching. Please comment below. Thanks, Christina, for joining. I'm going to start off today by saying I really appreciate the number of people that have sent me messages and emails about my Facebook Live chats. I really appreciate that. I mean, it means the world to know that people are watching. I appreciate your comments and your feedback as I begin to engage conversations and topics that are related to historically black colleges and universities. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about Donald Trump's statement that was in our spending package around the funding that was given to historically black colleges or universities. My name is Jamal Taylor. It's always my pleasure to join you. Thanks for watching my show. Let me educate you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about today about the plight of historically black colleges and universities. Particularly, I'm going to discuss the place that we have come from to where we're at now. One of the things that I want to talk about before I begin to get into the meat of the matter is some historical context. As a student of history that graduated from Southern University, HBCUs are, of course, my area of expertise. At the least, I think I have a little bit of context on the issue. And so historical black colleges and universities at their inception were schools, or are schools, that were started with the idea that everybody got a fair shake at education. More particularly, historically black colleges and universities were established because many of the white counterparts, particularly in the South, did not allow individuals from historically black colleges, African Americans or minorities to attend their schools. And so what ended up happening was Congress opened up money so that there was equal access or equal opportunity to education. This predated the time that the court indicated that separate but equal was inherently unequal, and was a time where the court had said separate and equal was equal, which we all know was struck down by the court in the oral argument of an individual that we know by the name of Thurgood Marshall. And so here recently, in February, Donald Trump met with the presidents and chancellors, and we'll call them CEOs of historically black colleges and universities. And there was a lot of flack for those institutions and for those presidents that engaged in that conversation with Donald. Donald Trump is, of course, was elected president of the United States by individuals that clearly did not recognize how uninformed and incapable the man was of leading leading a country the size of the United States of America. And thus, we have now begun to wait and watch and hope that he does the best. And so here recently he met with the HBCU presidents and chancellors in his office for a photo op. And that's what they left with, a photo op, where his special assistant or counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway, put her feet in the couch of the Oval Office, a completely disrespectful practice that indeed undermined the very value of the office. And so our presidents met with this individual in the hopes that we would garner some sort of favor by going in there and giving our opinion. And I've read the comments of some university presidents, a few of them saying, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. Instead, I am of the impression that the people that attended that meeting who said, look, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, are sadly mistaken. Instead, it's like a deer running out into the open for fire to get shot upon. Going into the office of a man that has clearly had a track record of poor race relations and a lack of ability to recognize the plight of those that are less than socially economically inclined is indicative of a people that have not truly recognized the ability of a person to be subversive to a race of individuals or to minorities in general. And so as I begin to talk today about this HBCU meeting, I'm brought to here recently where President Trump approved spending measures. And in the last paragraph of those spending measures, there was something said that, in particularly about the HBCU construction money that the federal government approved in '92, said that he would, of course, approve the documents, but instead he added, in a manner consistent with the constitutional requirement to afford equal protection under the law. And anybody that has any kind of context on the Equal Protection Clause and the way it was written and the people it was meant to protect kind of can conceptualize this idea that individuals were mistreated. And this mistreatment required an Equal Protection Clause to be established so that every individual had the right to some access. And if we know the historical context, as I just explained, of HBCUs, then we know that HBCUs and the people therein that attended had issue with the ability to function and be successful on monies that the government gave to institutions and in the hopes of impacting the minds of learners. And so basically, our president has said that if I deem it necessary, I'm going to say, basically, that this is a violation of the Equal Protection Clause, or this is discriminatory funding for institutions of tertiary education that identify as historically black. What our president does not understand and cannot conceptualize is this idea of the fact that we have historically been underfunded. We have historically been a stepchild to predominantly white institutions, not because we chose to be so, but because the government was set up as such. And so this commentary by our president is definitely troubling. But more importantly, this funding was given because historically black colleges and universities weren't getting equitable interest rates when they had construction projects, as I understand it. And so it's money that is intended to help the plight of our historically black colleges and universities. But more importantly, the goal of this money is to ensure that what is fair is equitable. Not equal, equitable. If I start two people at a race at different points and say they have the same amount of time to finish, it's very likely that the person that started ahead is going to finish first, particularly if they run at the same speed. Equity is giving the prescribed amount of resources to the group that needs it. And so, am I going to give millions of dollars in tax credits to millionaires but not give tax credits to families that are struggling, which is part of the tax theory of this president? But back to the topic at hand, as I look at the UNCF's comments, and I read an article that said, we are not overtly alarmed at this point. And a disgust came over me. And I value and appreciate what the United Negro College Fund does for historically black colleges and universities and students and the stakeholders of the said institutions. What concerns me is that as a people, we have gotten to the place that we are complacent. We wait for someone else to do the work that we can do ourselves. We wait to be reactionary. Let's not think that Donald Trump doesn't dislike black people. If I subscribe to that school of thought, like, let's not think that Donald Trump doesn't like black people until, of course, maybe he lynches somebody on the lawn of the White House. And I say that being, of course, a little sarcastic, but it makes the point that we wait until the worst happens before we react as an individual people. We have gotten complacent and in the place that we do not engage aggressively in the monitoring of our government, particularly in the monitoring of our historically black colleges and universities. We are talking about a president that used Black History Month to complain about the fake news media because someone accidentally wrote that he had moved the bust of Martin Luther King. Or he talked as if Frederick Douglass was still alive. Or he misspoke and misspelled W.B. Du Bois' name. Or he asked a congressional reporter, a White House reporter, April Ryan, if I'm not mistaken, to set up a meeting with the Congressional Black Caucus, when instead he had already gotten a letter in January asking for a meeting, but decided because she was a black person in his face that she was a spokesperson for all black people. And as we know, that is typically the process when you're in a room that is consumed with people of the other side of the race, that are consumed with people that are not black. And so it is definitely troubling, this president and his goal to delegitimize the role of historically black colleges and universities. We know that he doesn't care about historical black colleges and universities because we know about his appointment to be the Department of Education Secretary, Betsy DeVos, who said that HBCUs were schools of choice. You know, we had a choice. We could have went to LSU, even though they said, if you come up here, we're going to hurt you. We're going to do you something. In places like UL Lafayette, where you couldn't go if you were black, that had to be integrated. And so we recognize that in the South, historically black colleges and universities are more prevalent because white people did not at that time want black people to go to school with them. It's no secret. And I'm not saying that history is the same for these institutions nowadays. What I'm saying is you don't get to now say that our institutions are not legitimate because there are these other schools. And now they've decided that it's okay for black people to attend them. Instead, you afford the opportunity to all individuals to participate in the conversations around race and education in our country, and you allow the institutions to get the students that they're going to get. We also recognize during Black History Month that Sessions said, I'm going to fight for civil rights, and then changed the policy on voter identification in Texas. Those are the sorts of things that in the history of our historical black communities, we would have been incubators of thought around how to change the conversation, how to react to the dialogue, how to engage more critically in our communities. But instead, what has happened is we have remained and sat silently while our community of historically black colleges and universities have become breeding grounds for individuals that do not recognize and do not lend credence to the facts of our history, right? Many people don't recognize that Martin Luther King came to Baton Rouge and sat with the Reverend T.J. Jemison, who had the first successful bus boycott in this country. And we don't recognize that our schools house those discussions so that we could plan accordingly to ensure that people that look like you and I and individuals of color could have an opportunity in this country. But instead, we sit silently. We look at our HBCUs now and see schools in turmoil and chaos because we have refused to hold them accountable. We have subscribed to the school of thought that if we remain silent, perhaps they may get better. But instead, the truth is they have not gotten better. In truth, many of them have closed. Sachs, for example, has closed several of our institutions, not directly, but by their action of removing the accreditation of those institutions. And if we look at the schools and we compare the population and we say, what population of predominantly white schools have been closed, and then say, what percentage of historically black colleges and universities have been closed, the total percentage would have shocked you. It seems as though we have what I would consider an institutional lynching going on for historically black colleges and universities. What has occurred is we have sat silently and subversively. Institutions like Sachs have undermined our schools by closing them, by taking their accreditation. And we don't fight back. You know, I had occasion to have a conversation one day, and in that conversation, well, earlier today actually, and in the occasion of that conversation, one of my questions became, where are our schools getting together to discuss the topics of the day and the best way to engage the community of people that look like us, that we are originally intended to support? There are, I want to say 4, Grambling, 7 historical black colleges and universities: Southern University of New Orleans, Southern University of Shreveport, Southern University of Baton Rouge, Grambling, Dillard, Xavier. If I'm missing some, folks, tell me. And there were some brilliant minds in those places. The question is, when do the presidents of those HBCUs in Louisiana in particular get together? Are there those sorts of meetings? Are they having dialogue of what's going on in the country? Are they looking at the Alton Sterling conversation and saying, what can we do? There's a black mayor in the city of Baton Rouge. What is she doing to engage the conversation and help us to have a more fruitful discussion on what is the cause of strife that has engulfed our communities? And the truth is, I haven't seen them. I haven't seen the conversations. What we have done is become reactionary. We have decided that somebody else will carry the water for us. And so we see the activists out there marching about Alton Sterling. We say, somebody else got it. I don't have to get out of my house. Or we look at the data on voting and have conversations with our friends, and they can go to the mall every 2 days, but they haven't gone and cast a ballot. It's an atrocity. The question is, how have we gotten there? Why haven't we pushed legislation that would force every single high school senior, no matter their race, to register to vote upon graduation? What is our curriculum doing to ensure that people are engaged in the process of voting and understand the importance of it? What are our families saying to children that do not recognize the value of their voice in this country? We wait until something major happens, and then we sit back and tell our children, look, you see, this is what happened during the Civil Rights Movement, rather than getting ourselves up off the couch from in front of Twitter and Facebook. And look, I'm in front of Facebook now, but I have engaged in these processes. I've engaged in demonstrations. And I'm not saying that I'm knocking people who cannot get out and do it. But what I'm saying is, Michelle Obama said, and Barack Obama said, don't boo, vote. Well, the vote is over. Those discussions have been had, and Donald Trump is somebody's president, he isn't mine. And in the words of Auntie Maxine Waters, the distinguished congresswoman from California, we got to stop his ass. We got to stop what he is doing that encroaches on the rights and abilities of African Americans to engage in schools that were originally designed with them in mind. Similarly, predominantly white institutions were designed with white people in mind at their inception. And so we must begin to have a more deliberate and authentic conversation about the idea that we cannot continue to be idle spectators to what is happening to our schools, which were in truth incubators of who we were as a people. They were pillars in our community that held us together, that gave people hope. And now, as we watch our schools, we realize that there's so much internal conflict as of late that they can barely keep themselves afloat. And it's because we have not taken the diligent approach of ensuring that we are holding accountable the people that are charged to protect them. We have instead gotten to the place where we have allowed individuals who are not qualified or capable to run our institutions of tertiary education. What are we going to do about it is the question. And I don't know the answer. I don't purport to know the question. I mean, the answer. I know the question. It's now that time that we move forward with to find the answer to those questions so that we're able to save our historically black colleges and universities. We spend so much time as a people negatively engaging one another that we don't know how to set up ourselves for success as a collective. And so we must collectively get together as a community of people to continue to move forward. You know, W.B. Du Bois talked about this idea of the talented 10th. We got to be the 10% of people that bring up the rest, the 90% of our people that look like us, so that we are successful in this country. And that does not mean that they are not successful black individuals in this country. What it means is they have gotten successful, many of them, and forgotten from whence they came. They have forgotten that they were once part of a family of people that were enslaved, that were a family of people that were discriminated against, that were called niggas and spat upon when they tried to go to schools that were for predominantly white individuals. And so as I sit here and think critically about what we do and where we're at, I'm given pause for concern. I'm just flabbergasted by the lack of oversight that we have given to processes that directly impact us. I am saddened by the inability of people of color to engage critically. I've had people watch my videos and go back and post things, not that it matters to me one bit. And they say, oh, you know, they're doing these videos because they want attention. What attention do I want? There's nothing that you can give me. I'm doing this because I care, and because though you sit silently and allow these things to happen, I won't. I'm not going to allow that to shape my discussions and my ability to contribute to the conversation. This is the way that I engage. This is the way that I inform people. This is the way that I educate people on what's going on that they may not otherwise realize is going on. And so I talked last time about Betsy DeVos and her speaking at Bethune-Cookman. And I looked at and thanked the HBCU Digest for having a list of people that were the 2017 commencement speakers. And as I looked at the 2017 commencement speakers, the only place that had a person that was completely incapable of truly understanding the black experiences was Bethune-Cookman. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't know what their president's thinking, what their board's thinking was when they invited the lady to speak. But I want to say a couple of things. I want to say that as I looked at it, it said that Betsy DeVos, her mission to empower parents and students resonates with the history and legacy of Dr. Bethune. I don't know who wrote that. I don't know if the university released that and it was something that was sent to them from the Department of Education, but it is a foolish comparison. Dr. Bethune has nothing that relates to Betsy DeVos, who claims to be a community activist, who, as best they can, they try to say, look, she helps some black people. She helped the 100 black men of Central Florida. She helped the Jones High School in Paramore neighborhood, the poor black people that engage in this process of education. She has gone and helped them because those poor black people needed help. But is her help consistent? Does she recognize that calling HBCU schools of choice is an affront to the very nature and history of the thought process? I read something once that an individual wrote, and I'm going to see if I can talk about it on my next speak. But he talks about what he calls the white industrial complex, and it's a very telling few statements and some tweets that I saw from this individual. And I don't subscribe to the school of thought. I am not. I don't dislike people. I just speak what I think that makes sense. And so, you know what? His name is T.J. Cole, and I'm going to read something that he wrote. He said, from Saks to Christoph to Invisible Children to TED, the fastest growth industry in the U.S. is the white savior industrial complex. The white savior supports brutal policies in the morning, founds charities in the afternoon, and receives awards in the evening. The banality of evil transmute to the banality of sentimentality. The world is nothing but a problem to be solved by enthusiasm. This world exists to this world exists simply to satisfy the needs, including, importantly, the sentimental needs of white people. And he says, and Oprah. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. The white savior industrial complex is not about justice. It's about having a big emotional experience that validates privilege. Feverish worry over that awful African warlord. But close to 1.5 million Iraqis died from an American war of choice. Worry about that. I deeply respect American sentimentality the way one respects a wounded hippo. You must keep an eye on it, for you know it's deadly. And so as I talk about these topics, I read this and I was like, wow, but it's true. We help you poor people. We help the black people. Look what I did. I went out there to Central Florida and helped 100 black men. Yeah, I grew up in privilege, says this white lady, Betsy DeVos. But I help you poor people. Look what I did for you. It's like on The Color Purple when Miss Millie takes Sophia home. And she says, I've been good to you people. I've been good to you people. When they in truth weren't engaging her hostilely. But they've gotten this lady and asked her to speak at the speech of Bethune. That lady is rolling over in her grave right now because we have engaged in a process of allowing a person that has the idea of helping us poor people at the forefront of her mind. That's her opinion. And I don't feel bad that she thinks that way. I feel bad that we haven't let her know better. I feel bad that the people at Bethune haven't said to her, you can't come here. It's the equivalent of letting David Duke speak at a graduation here in Louisiana. We've got to do better. We deserve better. We must continue to engage this process that relates us back to from whence we came. there was a time when we truly engaged and had meaningful discussion about what impacted us as a people. And we've gotten to a place of complacency. We've allowed poor presidents to run our HBCUs, and not poor in money, but poor in ability to lead, poor in ability to converse, poor in ability to truly engage the process. So I'll say to you folks, thank you for watching. I always appreciate when I have viewers on. I appreciate the comments. Open your eyes. Recognize what's going on in our community and begin to engage in the process. We must continue to engage the process of our historically black colleges and universities and encourage a history of people so that we don't become complacent and continue to allow these people to beat us back and to continue to attack our HBCUs as this president has in this recent article. We've got to continue the fight of those people that gave us the opportunity to engage in our educational process. Folks, I always appreciate you watching. My name's Jamal Taylor. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's in the link. More importantly, you can add me on Twitter at Woke Education. My website's coming soon. I appreciate you. Huge shout out to my friend Sonia. I'm not going to say your last name, for always having my back and encouraging me to do this. Folks, my name's Jamal Taylor. Let me educate you. Please share the video. Thanks.